Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kaja May, and welcome to tonight's episode of Game Over Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks just beat the Anaheim Ducks. That rhymes, actually. 3-2 in regulation, which means that the Ducks don't get a point, which, they win in a way, and the Canucks do get 2 points, which means we kind of lost in a way, but we still won the game. It's an odd situation where we're at in the season. At least we're not Pittsburgh. Before we get into the show tonight, I have a message from Sports Interaction. Get in on the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction. Every hit, every shot, every goal from all your favorite teams and players, like Elias Patterson hitting 101 points tonight on the season, with competitive odds, the best live in play, and more ways than ever to get into the game, like Minute Madness, our exclusive game with so many opportunities to win by the minute. Download the app in Ontario, use the QR code you see at the bottom of the screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus, please play responsibly. All right. Now, you have a familiar face if you are... Now, for my guest tonight, I have a familiar face if you frequent hockey TikTok. I have the wonderful, spectacular, that one clip of Lady Gaga just keep using adjectives. Hello, Annie OD. How are you today?
You're so sweet. That was the best intro the Lady Gaga used.
I used to have that memorized, and now it's just gone.
What is it? Talented, brilliant, incredible,
stopping, spectacular. Yeah. That's a great video. Yeah. Honestly, a little starstruck right now. But how was your game tonight?
Oh my goodness, you're so sweet. I'm honored to be here. I'm doing all right though. It's a stressful evening. Got the Lakers playing in the play-in game right now, so I'm following. Of course, that couldn't end before we
yep.
On here, so I'm following on overtime. But overall, pretty solid night. Can't complain. How about you?
It was a pretty solid night. I mean, it was better than last night. We lost last night. We got shut out by Korpisalo of the Los Angeles Kings, which still confuses me. I always forget Jonathan Quick's a Vegas Golden Knight now, and I don't like it. Like,
so disrespectful. They did him wrong there.
They did him wrong.
And I knew, honestly, the way it usually goes is if a team is doing a California road trip, if the Kings gets absolutely school them, then they're going to then they win in Anaheim. Just kind of the way it's done this entire season. It's like I was at the game where the Kings were playing the Flames, and I think it was 8-2 was the final for the Kings. I'm like, Flames are going to stomp on the Ducks tomorrow. Just the way it's going to go. And that's what happened. So, and that's just my life. Cause God will kill me before letting me be successful or allowing me to have any kind of bragging power over my Kings fan friends who have 2 Stanley Cups to my 1. So that is my life.
Oh yeah, the Kings were successful for like 3 years. Anyway. For like 3 years, and then they gave Dustin Brown a statue that is a little cursed. Anyway. So
that thing is the creepiest thing ever. Like, it's like, that scene in Little Mermaid where they reveal the statue and Prince Eric is like,
yeah,
like the dog is angry and everything. It's just like not a good statue. That's how I feel about the Dustin Brown statue. I'm like, really?
It's giving that one Ronaldo statue from a few years ago. That one that just is so cursed. Anyway, tonight started off semi-quickly. Jacob Silfverberg gets a penalty for hooking. The Canucks score on the power play. Brock Boeser scores to make it 1-0 with Elias Patterson with the primary assist. He got 100 points. He ended up getting 101 later on with Miller's game-winning goal, which was also Miller's 200th goal of his career. And he was like the 9th of his draft class to do it. And I was like, is that how like, it was 2011. I was like, who else is in that draft class? Because like, that's over a decade ago.
2011. That was the year I graduated high school. If that makes me feel. Sorry, I don't tell me how old you were when 2011, please. Let's see who is in that draft. Let's see.
Nuge, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Landeskog, Huberdeau, Ryan Strome, Mika Ziban. Okay, so it makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
That I always try to think. I was like, how old was I when certain drafts were happening? Because I still remember the first draft that I really like, obviously the 07 Patrick Kane draft was one of the first ones because I was a teenager and like paying attention to. So I try to like match it to how old I was. And it's so funny when you look back at drafts and you're like, if you could redraft, like knowing what we know now, how would they look different?
Oh yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. I feel like a lot of drafts would definitely go a completely different. 2020 would be Tim Stützle would be a Ranger. I swear.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that's funny. I was having a conversation at dinner actually tonight, and you brought up Brock Boeser, and I was thinking of athletes, specifically NHL players that are so likable that you don't trust somebody if they don't like them. And I would put Brock Boeser on my list. That's a guy.
Yes.
How do you hate a guy like that? Just everything you got him and what he's been through. I was like,
He's my favorite Canuck for a reason. He was tied with Luke Schenn, but Luke Schenn is now apparently a really good goal scorer in Toronto. So scored one tonight against Tampa, which was just an insane game. I wasn't watching it, but I was like paying attention to what was going on, and I was like, they don't have Giordano Matthews-Marner. This isn't Game Over Toronto, but I just wanted to point that out there, that like, oh my gosh, 2016, or was it, is 2016 the right draft? It is the right draft. Okay, yeah. I'm like, Matthew Tkachuk would not have gone 6th in 2016. No. He would either be an Oiler or a Canuck. I'm still so mad about that draft. Continuing on, yeah. Ellison got the first goal as a Duck, so that must be exciting. I had not heard of him. I had not heard of him before tonight. I'm going to be completely honest.
He had a hell of a game too. He was all over the place. Jackson Lacombe also having his NHL debut tonight, coming off that Minnesota loss in the Frozen Four championship. Sorry, well, I guess it's the Frozen Four, but do you call it the National Championship or do you call it the Frozen Four Championship? But well, then again, you're in Canada, so
yeah. I'm like,
I guess it's not really a big thing.
There's one NCAA school, and they don't even do hockey here. Hockey in the NCAA for that one school, and I'm like, why? It's my school, but it's my school. I know, but yeah, Frozen Four. I feel like that's more of it's a cute. I don't want to say cute name, but National Championship. That's too broad. It's too broad. It's like that could National Championship of what? Chess? Like no, Frozen Four. That's either hockey or like a ice castle building event held somewhere in Minnesota. Like,
but yeah, I was trying to think. I think Drew Ellison, if I'm not mistaken, because I know he's an Avalanche prospect and we got him. So Drew Ellison he was part of the Josh Manson trade deadline. That's right. So he was an Avalanche. He was an Avalanche prospect and came over, he was down with the goals for a bit this year and made his debut. So yes. The future, especially on that blue line, I thought the Ducks played very well tonight, especially now because you're in that time period where you're giving a lot of your younger guys, like a lot of guys are making their debuts. Like I feel like the Ducks have had like 5 kids make their NHL debuts in the last 2 weeks. But this is that time. You're not making the playoffs, so you might as well get the young guys some NHL reps up before next season, before they come back for training camp. And I liked what we saw, honestly. So, not obviously I guess you could say the result was exactly what the Ducks said. Well, at least the Ducks fans would have wanted. It's so interesting. I know, I'm speaking to the choir here as your fan base, I know, has been through the ringer this season, and I know you're also on team Connor Bedard, hoping to get your hometown boy in that Vancouver Canucks.
I'm like, we have an elite center. We have an elite center. Yeah. I want an elite center in Columbus. I am sorry. Out of my division. I am sorry. Out of my division.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a lot. Could you imagine having Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard in the same division? That's just...
It's already painful enough. Enough.
Honestly, I just saw the Oilers absolutely manhandle the Ducks this past week, so I understand that. I understand. And even when you're tanking, it's never fun. It's never fun to see your team just get absolutely spanked. And it's hard because you're rooting for the tank, but you know that you kind of have to remember that on the human side, like the players are showing up night in, night out. Like this is their job. They're getting paid a lot of money to play a game for a living. So they're going to come, they're going to show up. They have that competitive nature. They're going to, put their best out on the ice. Meanwhile, but it's got to be hard knowing that the fans are actively rooting for you to lose.
Yeah, that's the Canucks fan base has kind of been like split this year, I'd say. More people are now just more angry in retrospect that we didn't like tank or whatever. But at the same time, I'm like, it's not like, okay, I know they're like not exactly the same player, but I'm gonna use the example of Quinn Hughes wasn't injured 8 games into the season like Jamie Drysdale was. Right. As one of your like shining light prospect kind of people. I'm just saying this because I'm a little biased. He's kind of my favorite Ducks player, but
I respect that.
Thank you. Yeah, but like I know we had Demko injuries and stuff like that, but Thatcher
Demko is my favorite Canuck, San Diego. Which of course they brought up on the broadcast like 7 times that he's a San Diego native. I was like, we get it, we know. Yeah,
and they played Colin Delia last night too, and he's from somewhere in Southern California. I forget. It's like some small town, I think. But both of our goalies are from California, which I find really interesting.
We're a hotbed here. What can I say?
Yeah, I know. You guys are producing a lot of people. Kind of like
Rancho Cucamonga. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I was like, it's Cucamonga, it's something. I don't remember what the rest is.
That's probably one of the most fun town like names to say in as far as California towns. I mean, Rancho Cucamonga is just so fun to say.
That's so fun. You kind of mentioned like NCAA people getting the shot. We've had that a lot in Vancouver as well. Akito Hirose, he got his first 2 NHL penalties tonight, 2 for high sticking, so that was fun. I'm sorry he hit Troy Terry. I know you're a Troy Terry captain stan, I believe.
I am a Troy Terry captain stan. That man should be wearing the C come next season. I don't want to see anybody else wearing that C but him.
Yeah, it's really interesting how some fan bases without captains have like a set player who they know is going to be it, and then there's other franchises that when they don't have a captain, they're like debates like us right now. It's like, oh, is it going to be Quinn? Is it going to be Petey? Is it going to be I don't know, Phil DiGiuseppe? It could be anybody at this point.
Right. Well, I think you have to pick, there's certain strategies you can go and certain, ways as far as like picking a captain. For me, if your team is going through a rebuild, you want to have somebody that's going to be a part of that core, that's going to be a part of that young group that's coming up and going to lead you to being cup contenders again. And obviously a lot of people you look at some of the veteran presence on the Ducks right now, you've got Adam Henrique, you've got Jakob Silfverberg, you've got a Cam Fowler that's been there since 2010. And for me, I just think Troy Terry has just stepped up majorly, especially this season. I mean, you lose your captain in Ryan Getzlaf just this offseason. And I think a lot of people, going into this season with, the expectations that, hey, the Ducks will improve upon last season. They had a really great start, of the first half of last season. But the loss of Ryan Getzlaf is huge. And I think a lot of people kind of thought that would – not that they knew it would impact the team, but I think they underestimated how much of a loss that is for that locker room and for this organization. So, this was the season for guys to say, all right, who's going to step up? Who's going to be the voice? Who's going to be the leader in this locker room? And Troy Terry has always been, I think, just from what I've seen, stood up for his teammates. Ryan Getzlaf took him under his wing last season. So I'm a full supporter of Troy Terry wearing that C. And then give some of the young guys if you want to give one of the vets an A, sure. But, no, Adam Henrique and Silfverberg should not be wearing letters, in my opinion. They won't be a part. They won't be a part of when this team is competitive. Let's be honest here. So, and Cam Fowler, he just does. I mean, he's been here the longest. He just doesn't give me that captain air. You know what I'm saying? Plus, he's in his early 30s now. He'll still be. I mean, he's still got that contract that's gonna run for a couple more seasons, but. I just think I think you got to give it to the young guys. I love the move. Give it to a young Sidney Crosby, giving it to Connor McDavid, Gabriel Landeskog, Jonathan Taves, letting those young guys really rise to the occasion while wearing the letter on their sweater. So that's always been, I've always been a fan of that of that route when it came to picking a captain, but I completely understand, a different route as far as giving it to a veteran, especially if, hey, your team is still competitive at the time. You want to have that veteran leadership presence in there. But if you're going through a rebuild, like, give your team an identity, let a young guy step up to the plate there. But as far as Vancouver goes, what would be your strategy for picking a captain?
Okay, I used to be. It's really hard right now. I'm not gonna lie, because yes, we have Elias Patterson, and he's our best player, obviously. Brock Boeser apparently said earlier today that he's like, oh yeah, he's got to be up there with like McDavid and Draisaitl and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, keep hyping your friend up, buddy. But yeah, I do think Elias Patterson is an elite centerman. I will say that. But
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he had a rough year last year. He's definitely shown this year that he can take that extra step. My only issue is more recent is the contract. He's only signed for another year. Who knows if he wants to re-sign? He's an RFA, so we get the rights. But then again, What if, back to Matthew Tkachuk, what if he does that? That's my fear right now. At least we know Quinn Hughes is signed for a long time. I don't think JT Miller is gonna take it. I'm gonna be honest. I know a lot of people.
You don't want him to take it.
Oh no. No, that was a lot of people were like making jokes like, oh, Miller's gonna be the captain. Miller's gonna be captain after last season. And then this season, like, no. I saw what he did with Colin Delia in Winnipeg, I believe. Like, no. When he smacked his stick on the top of the net because Delia wasn't going to the net, even though he put the puck back into his own zone. I'm still mad about that, but like, he's reformed now, but I'm still mad. He's reformed somewhat.
Totally.
But Quinn Hughes has definitely made a case for himself in recent memory as captain, with statements he's made on Pride Night, etc. He did a speech at the end of the game of Fan Appreciation Night on Saturday after we beat the Flames and kind of soft launched their exit from playoff contention. But soft launch. I mean, it was the first nail in the coffin. That's what I know. Like, last season, the Canucks didn't get knocked out of playoff contention until game 80, and like halfway through game 80 when the Kings clinched. And I remember I was at that game. It was against Seattle. We ended up winning 5-2, but I was at the game at Rogers Arena prior to that, and that was the first game that kind of soft launched their not making it, because we lost to the Senators in a 5th-round shootout goal by Adam Gaudette. So, yeah. Like, I still have flashbacks to that. Yeah, I think Quinn Hughes, I know, Canucks, we're not going through a rebuild, we're doing a retool. I hate that. I hate both those words. I use retool as a joke right now whenever I'm, like, writing a paper. But I think either Quinn Hughes or Elias Patterson. Elias Patterson, if he resigns, I think has a stronger case for it. And that could be, like, a sweetener. Like, oh, if you resign, we'll give you the captaincy. But then again, Quinn Hughes is... I feel like Quinn Hughes is more outward with his leadership style, whereas Elias Patterson might be a bit more reserved with it. Because, we're not in the locker room. We don't really know what's going on. So it could be completely different in there. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they even do it this summer, because they could just procrastinate it like the Rangers and just not do it for, like, 4 years. So...
Jeez. Yeah, that's too long, in my opinion.
It was too long, and then they announced it's Jacob Trouba.
I have mixed feelings about. Part of it's funny, kind of hearing, and you said it best, as you said, we're not in the locker room. We don't know what's said there, and the fact that what seems to be all the players were in agreement that Trouba's the guy that should be wearing the C. Meanwhile, the fans and everyone outside the locker room had their own opinions about it. And say what you will about him as a player. I mean, I am a Corey Perry. I'm a lifelong Corey Perry fan, so I should probably I gotta watch my mouth when I say certain things here and not be a total hypocrite. But like, love him or hate him, that was who the players picked. That's their vote to wear the C. I would have thought Chris Kreider would have been a shoe in there, but then again,
I personally, I think, because Chris Kreider, I think, is just that point where he just hates talking about himself, so he just didn't want like extra attention being captain. So he's
he's like, I just want to play hockey.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just chilling here. I'm just
right.
Chris Kreider.
But I feel like I mean, for as far as Pedersen goes, I feel like just given the way the Canucks season has gone, I feel like this offseason needs to be huge as far as like, and this entire like Iron season going for, next season needs to be, hey, what steps are we making to move this franchise forward? What's going to make this an appealing place for elite players to want to sign and play here long term? So I don't know. It's got to be. I know the Ducks have some contracts and players to negotiate with and re-sign, which they said very early on. Earlier this season, Pat Verbeek, the GM, was saying, hey, Zegras, Drysdale, and Terry are all up for extensions. We're going to table that. We're going to focus on playing this entire year. And then let's approach during the off season and see, what we can build from there, which honestly, the fact that Troy Terry's I think he's making about, it's like $1.5 million a year. So that guy's going to get a huge pay bump.
Oh yeah.
Rightfully and deservedly so. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of deals Zegras and Drysdale walk away with. And, everyone's, because they're both RFAs, of course, with their rookie contracts expiring. And, there always seems to be, and I don't know how often you listen to the ESPN broadcasts here, but like Bucci Gross and some of these people were running with this narrative that like, just given that Zegras has been a hot topic this season, given, some of the things he's done on the ice, saying, oh yeah, this is why the Ducks haven't offered him, signed him to an extension. It's like, that's not the case at all. Like if you just paid attention to the Ducks, which understandably, listen, I get it. They're not the most entertaining team. It's not the hottest market here. Like I get that some people don't pay attention a lot of the time to what's going on in Anaheim, but like a little bit of research before you go spewing this narrative that there's a reason why he hasn't been signed to an extension yet. So
yeah, the Anaheim Ducks would not purposefully hold out on signing the guy who arguably gives them most of the attention, like obviously
easily
because Troy Terry, very good player, he was the All-Star this year, but at the same time Trevor Zegras is the one who does all the crazy stuff. Like he's the one on the highlight reel.
Funny. He's the personality. He's flashy. He's entertaining. He's everything. I stitched this TikTok earlier this season where it was like that Zegras is wasted in Anaheim and that he would be better off in a big market like LA or New York, which is the idiocy of that. First of all, is that Anaheim's in the LA market. So, and literally ask any Kings fan about how undermarketed Kopitar, Doughty have been their entire career. Like it wouldn't be any different.
I don't like Doughty.
Yeah, I feel that. I understand that. I don't like many. I like Kopitar. I respect Kopitar. Yeah. That's a guy. You look back at that 05 draft. That's a guy that would definitely be drafted higher. No question about it. I'd take Kopitar over Jack Johnson. I'd take Kopitar over Bobby Ryan. And I love Bobby Ryan, but I would take Anze Kopitar over him any day. But and then the fact that like to grow the game, you need to be in a big market. And that's honestly, people were talking about that with Connor Bedard. They're saying, oh no, he needs to be an Original Six market. He needs to be in Chicago. I'm like, no, he does not. No, he does not. I mean, you think back to what Sidney Crosby was able to do to revive that Pittsburgh market, a market that was so depleted, honestly, like set to move to Kansas City, needed new ownership, and really revitalized that fan base and created a whole new generation and era of fans in Pittsburgh. And that's what can happen if he lands in a market like Columbus, like in Anaheim, like a San Jose. I mean, Vancouver has a very established fan base, but the excitement that would come back if he were to somehow land there would be, that's night and day from landing in, it better not be Chicago. I'm counting on the hockey gods to come through. Come through for all of us and keep him out of Chicago.
Chicago is like the one where I'm like I'm fine if it's Anaheim or San Jose, because like I can stand those markets in our division.
Right.
I think the Kings are absolutely boring as shit, but
they're gonna be, if they'll win I think they'll win depending on how it all shakes out. I think they'll get through past the first round, but I don't see them going deep. I don't think the goaltending is there for them. They're
like upper mid.
Yeah, accelerated rebuild. I respect it. You missed the playoffs for 3 seasons and you can come back, be competitive there, and did what you had to do. I respect it. but I think there's still work to be done there.
Yeah.
As far as building up elite.
Yeah, if Drew Doughty is still the face of your franchise, you still have work to do. But yeah, like an Anaheim or San Jose, like that's fine. Columbus, I'm fine with that. Just Johnny Gaudreau will finally smile again. But Chicago does not deserve anything at all.
No,
terrible organization. Like
me and a Columbus, a friend who's a Columbus fan have a bet going that if the Ducks get the first overall pick, she'll buy me a Bedard Ducks jersey. If the Blue Jackets get the pick, I'll buy her a Columbus Blue Jackets jersey. And if the Blackhawks somehow get the first overall pick, that we will donate to either RAIN or some kind of organization that supports survivors of sexual assault. So that's gives me I will make some good out of that situation. But listen, it's for the fans wise, like I get it. None of that trash stuff has anything to do with them, but also they have had their time. They've had their fun.
Yeah.
They have had their joy. That enough is enough. Time to spread the generational talent elsewhere. Okay. It is no, you can't have it both ways. You can't have too much success. That's not fair. That's not fair.
But they have generational talent. They have Seth Jones locked up for many, many years on a big contract. Yeah.
That is 2023 NHL All-Star Seth Jones, mind you.
That is such a dumb rule. That is such a dumb rule that Seth Jones was allowed in the All-Star game, but they kept so many other players out.
Right.
Trevor Zegras was not in the All-Star game, but Seth Jones was.
No. Exactly. And then listen, Zegras isn't having a great year. I get that, but like last year, he wasn't having the best year either. But they brought him because he was exciting and made the breakaway challenge fun. Which, granted, I feel like the breakaway challenge has just kind of lost its luster at this point.
Yeah, 100%. Like last year, last year was terrible. When like it was good. Zegras, Jack Hughes stole the show, but then freaking Pietrangelo winning it because the house always wins in Vegas.
John Hamm,
so dumb. That was so dumb. John Hamm, I lost all respect for you. How could you do this to me? But then William Nylander should be in the All-Star game. Yeah, like there's so many players who get snubbed from the All-Star game because of this. Every team needs a player in rule.
Right.
Like you can't tell me that Quinn Hughes should not be in the All-Star game. Personally, there's a lot of players I think that just get thrown in there because everyone needs a representative. But then they, forgot about that rule anyway because Matty Beniers wasn't in, and then they just didn't bring anybody in for Seattle. So
that was so dumb. Everything is just so. Hopefully they learn their lesson for this year and try to do better. A part of it was ESPN too, for us at least. I hope Sportsnet was better for you guys, but ESPN was absolutely atrocious as far as the broadcast goes. So
I'm just done with the digital board ads because like
that too.
Too many players are disappearing into the boards. Like I swear I watched a game once where Markstrom got like decapitated by it or something. I don't know if it was Markstrom, but it was a goalie. I remember that. Yeah.
And Gary's out here saying that it's going really great.
It got nominated for an Emmy.
The response has been positive. It's like, Gary, baby, what are we doing?
It's like, it's about as positive as like, the Australia game announcement is also pissing me off today, so that's like kind of why I'm also mad at the Kings, because the Kings and the Coyotes are not the teams to make people interested in hockey. I will say that. The only interesting part about the Kings, to me, is that Will Ferrell and Snoop Dogg show up at their games. The only interesting thing about the Coyotes, to me, is that they play an arena named after a hairstyle from the 80s. There is... and, like, I mean, it's an upgrade for the Coyotes, bigger arena, but you're sending two teams... Maybe these are the only teams that agreed to go to Melbourne, but there are more exciting teams. The Ducks would have been a better team to send. No offense.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
What do you mean, no offense? What do you mean?
No, because I said that like kind of condescendingly, but at the same time, like
it's all right.
Like
it's all
guys have some of the most exciting young players. Former Team Canada captain Mason McTavish. He was captain, right? I'm not losing it.
Yes, he was.
Okay,
yes,
good.
He was.
Trevor Zegras, obviously.
Olin Zellweger's probably going to come up and play with the big club next year, which is
Nice.
I feel like you have to at this point. He's ready. He's ready.
Yeah, you guys can watch they can watch Ryan Strome miss like 500 empty nets.
No.
The Rangers fan in me is still mad about that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah, and then the Kings, just it's an odd pairing to send over there. Kings in Arizona. Like, I get it, maybe, climate-wise, I don't know. I've never been to either city. I've been to LA for about 5 minutes. So
5 minutes.
5 minutes. It was probably longer. It was like I was stuck in LAX. But then I went to Anaheim, and Anaheim was cooler anyway, so whatever. But
it's more chill. I enjoy Orange County. I like where it gets a bad rap. And I mean, everyone kind of gives the Ducks a hard time, especially when they won the Stanley Cup. There wasn't really a parade. There was a rally in the parking lot. And to be honest, there's no downtown in Anaheim. There's no like downtown Orange County. Like, cause what are you gonna do? Parade around Disneyland?
I was gonna say, I was like, just go downtown Disney. Just walk past.
And literally, that would be it. And
the Rainforest Cafe would have still been there, right?
Yes. I love a good Rainforest Cafe reference. Yes.
Yes.
But no, it's just that, I mean, but the fact is that like Orange County has a bigger population than a lot of US cities, a lot of Canadian cities too at that. So there's a lot of people here, and granted, listen, not the biggest hockey market. That's an obvious choice. And that's an obvious statement. And the fact that, they are going through a rebuild, crowds have been suffering this year. But last year I was at the home game before the Zegras assist, the alley-oop assist in Buffalo, and then the home game right after. And there were noticeably more fans in the seats. No, night and day noticeably. And there's a whole new wave of hockey fans just because of the young guys that are here. And that's exciting. I think that's the best part about this. And, granted, people give it a hard time because you got all these young guys, and there's more. People are like, oh, it's all like teenage girls and everything. I'm like, let's get some girls. However we get girls into sports, that's fine. Like, and I can't hate, like, back in, I will never hate, honestly, like, but back in my day, I'm like, but like, granted, like when I was a teenager, like the hot, you had Sid, you had Malkin. Yes, people thought Malkin was hot back when I was a teenager. You had Taves and Kane, which now really didn't age well, I know. But you had Taves and Kane; those were the guys to crush on. The Stahl brothers were still young, like it was
non-problematic.
Exactly. The girl Zach Parise was still kind of in his 20s there, but it was that's how it works. You can't anyway. Like, I don't hate how anyone gets to the game as long as you're there to enjoy it, have a good time, and you're welcoming. You're more than welcome. So I'm all for this new wave of welcoming and just fans that are ready to have a good time. That's the way I look at it. So
yes. Yeah. I'm gonna expand on that in a second. Before I get to that. Orange County has less than 2 million. Okay, there's a less than 2 million population difference between BC and Orange County.
The entire province?
The entire province has 5.071 million people, and apparently Orange County is 3.16 million. So that's less than 2 million in one area compared to an entire province that is massive. I have had to fly into the middle of the province because it would have been too long to drive. That's how big it is. I know people talk a lot about like the young fans and stuff like that. It's exciting to see, personally, because like just getting a new generational wave, people can criticize them all they want. This is how you grow the game. This is how, like,
totally.
The One Direction to a hockey pipeline is real. Like, it's Tumblr helps, Twitter helps. Totally 100%. Like, this game needs to capitalize a bit on the younger audience, I believe, and the fact that it's still gatekeeping from specifically, like, young girls. It's kind of mean, but I know some teams kind of feed into that.
They should.
They should,
not.
especially on TikTok. Can I just say, like,
yes,
Fancams, chef's kiss, love them. Especially when the teams do them, because it's hilarious all the time. Like, I know they just I swear the Canucks tried to purposely do a Patterson thirst trap the other day on their TikTok. Yeah, it was something. It was something.
You're like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, if it grows the game, it grows the game. I understand.
The funniest is when you're on TikTok and you're scrolling and you see like Book Talk that has this infatuation with hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
And for one, you see them make these fan cams like romanticizing these guys. Like, Tyler Seguin was another one from my generation.
Oh, yeah. Valid.
He's a couple years older than me. So that was like prime time for Seguin. And like now they're like making all these videos about him and you're like, oh baby, what are we doing here?
I know,
if
it's
only
like
you knew.
Tyler Seguin, if only you knew the lore.
Right, exactly. But then also it's they have like these stories where it's like making these like game scenarios that would never absolutely happen.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is so many like hockey romance books don't, like, half the authors don't know how the game works. And
Exactly.
you know, get the bag, I get it. But at the same time, there are certain authors that understand the game and there's certain ones that don't. I've read hockey romance novels, but I have a selection of the only ones I will read that are, you know, they know how the game works. I don't remember. Yeah. There was a player recently who said he was reading L. Kennedy books. I don't remember who it was, but L. Kennedy is like a hockey romance writer. I have a few of her books. Yeah. L. Kennedy.
We gotta know. We
gotta
figure this out.
I think it's a lot of sports main one, but there's a few series. Yeah. I feel like capitalizing on... I see a lot of the 2019 draft boys. I see a lot on my For You page. I will say...
the 2019 draft has their whole crew. You have everybody.
Like, I need to stop seeing TikToks, you know, the big three audio. It's either always Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, and Cole Caulfield, or it's the Hughes brothers. And I'm just like, I get it, but it's a little odd when I'm like sitting there on my bed, like scrolling through TikToks, and I have the pride flag there behind me now for those watching on YouTube. But behind that is like a Quinn Hughes thing. So I just look up and the poster, you know, it's a typical Quinn Hughes face. So he just looks tired of playing for the Vancouver Canucks, which I don't blame him. And I'm just like, this is who TikTok is obsessed with. Okay.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time. And yeah, Book Talk. I see a lot of Matt Barzal.
A lot of Barzal. Yep. I'm friends. We have a family friend who's from Boston, and he says it was during the playoffs. Was it last year? No, the year before, because the Islanders didn't make the playoffs last year. But
yeah,
he had this. He would always say, he said it in this thick Boston accent. He said Matt Barzal. So every time, that's how I hear his name. It's never Barzal anymore. I say it still. I can't say Barzal. It's Barzal.
Barzal. Yeah.
Matt Barzal.
I think he's from
that guy.
He's from BC. I think he's from...
Yes. Oh, he's Canadian. He's 100% Canadian.
Yeah, he's...
This guy.
He's from, I think, Coquitlam. I don't know. He's from a few cities over from me, but it's really funny. I think I found a picture of like his learner's driver's license. On like Pinterest. Pinterest is also another place where there's a lot of hockey pictures, I will say.
Yeah, big time. I was in the I wasn't in the Tumblr era, but I definitely I think I was on like the outskirts of it, and I would occasionally scroll, and sometimes you would just see things and you're like, all right, like
there's so much.
Some of these pictures, some things that people would post, but hockey Tumblr was a whole other hockey Twitter. But I also feel like hockey Twitter was the reason being a girl in Southern California, and like none of my friends liked hockey back when I was in high school, and high school was like Twitter. I got on Twitter for the first time. I didn't have any friends that liked hockey locally. So Twitter was how I interacted with people, was how I made friends. And so much conversation in hockey and social media is happening on hockey Twitter. So I feel like whenever I see teams kind of interacting, you need to have a strong Twitter presence. That is key
for
predators.
That's key.
I love that they missed the playoffs today.
Oh, their Twitter was funny though. Their Twitter is very funny. I will give them that. You need a good social media presence, yeah.
You need to. It's key now. Whereas like back, I feel like back, I mean, I still remember back, what was it, 2012 when like the King's Twitter was the first one to be like snarky, was the first one. Twitter and the Kings and the Kings and Columbus were like the first ones to really get snarky and be less professional on social media. And then that just kind of started the wave there. And then of course, as most people got more unhinged on social media, it went from there. But that's huge. That's how you interact with your fans easiest. Cause that's, I feel like Twitter's, that's where you get all your hockey news. That's where you follow insiders. That's where, all the trades break are on Twitter. So that's where you got to be. But I love that teams are really leaning more into social media and listening to their fans there too. Like that's huge.
Yeah. Especially when I remember I got a reply once from the Calgary Flames and I freaked out a little bit. So it's like interacting with fans is such an important part too. And especially like, I don't want to bring a pandemic into this, but especially when people necessarily can't always go to the games because, hey, we didn't have people in the stands for like 2 years in recent time.
Yeah.
People still live like across, I know Canucks fans from the UK, from across the continent of North America. Like if you have like a far reach, and also hockey, considering I don't know what it's like in the States, but like the hockey teams in Canada, tickets are hella expensive. So
yeah. Depends on where you are. Depends on the market. Depends on.
I like Sens tickets are like $30, I think. Sens tickets can be $30, and then the Leafs are like $1,000. Yeah, it's kind of insane, and that's just like within 3 hours of each other. Vancouver is a bit more expensive, I believe, compared to like other markets, but still like.
Well, that makes sense though, because there's really before Seattle came, there really wasn't any other NHL team near you guys. So
yeah,
that
like,
makes sense.
And then plus also just everything in Vancouver is expensive, so
okay.
used to it, but yeah,
that's
like
California.
The accessibility of the sport isn't always there, especially so having that added presence to kind of get into people's minds, I guess, helps. And yeah, hockey Twitter, it's a blessing and a curse for me personally, but it is a good way to connect with other fans, especially because, yeah, I understand I didn't have a lot of friends that were into hockey growing up. I still sometimes feel like I'm talking my friends' ears off when I talk to them about literally anything that happens within the hockey world. But yeah, it's important to have like a community that.
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it brings all sorts of people. I mean, I've met so many of my like lifelong friends through hockey Twitter. So, and some of the most supportive people of like my content and my, whatever I put out into Twitter, into the internet, as far as into the hockey world, like the most supportive people have been people that I've met online. Some of them I've never even met before. We've just have this online relationship and they're just beyond supportive, more so than some of my friends in real life. So it's funny how that works.
Yeah. It's odd because like sometimes it feels like when you're talking to somebody through a screen, it like you're like already buddies with them. Like I have a lot of friends from Canucks Twitter and like from just hockey Twitter in general that like I live across the continent or the world or another city over, but like it's hard to see them. Like it's great having a community that you can go to, especially when it can be a hostile environment at times.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's like, especially like some people are just absolutely vile. Like especially as women too, like it's getting a lot better. And obviously like the, SDPN is one of the organizations and one of the media companies that's fighting the good fight in terms of equality and uplifting, voices that are so silenced a lot, not even just a lot, all the time, especially in hockey. But there's times where I'll post, like I posted a funny, like least favorite goal song video on TikTok. And of course it blew up, but like the amount of just men that are just coming in and commenting on my looks, saying absolutely misogynist things. And this is over a personal opinion over goal songs. This isn't even me like putting any analysis, it's just me voicing my opinion, and they don't attack me. They literally make it personal.
Yeah, it's keyboard
They make
warriors.
it personal. And so, exactly. And people that wouldn't, like, if they saw me on the street, they would not speak to me. They would not have the balls to come speak to me. So
yeah,
it's really retrospect, but the fact that I love like screenshotting and sharing with my friends and being like, look what was just said. But sometimes like they'll go to war for me and like reply in the comments and go like troll their page and things like that. And other times it's just like, you just got to laugh it off in that sense. Cause some people are just so chronically online and don't have any aspect of, you know, people that have any kind of different viewpoint or live outside their world. So it's the sports internet world is, while, you know, you surround yourself and you can create your own community, like you're sometimes reminded that it's still the Wild West and there's still people that are so close-minded and hateful out there. So it's important to have those good communities wherever you are. So
yes. To make a complete 180, what are your, obviously, you know, this was the desired result for the Ducks this year. I mean, like, I'd say first desired result is getting a Stanley Cup, but like tanking is the second. Like if it's not the Stanley Cup, then you gotta tank, because like what else
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think the Ducks, what's your prediction for the Ducks next season?
It's interesting there. I think they missed the playoffs again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll be another, depending on how the draft lottery goes. I think that's going to be key. But the best news out of this is that the Ducks are guaranteed to have at least third highest draft lottery odds. So there's a chance there they could fall as low as fifth, I believe, depending on how, you know, how the ping pong balls shake out. So they're guaranteed a fantastic. Oh, it presumes to be, obviously we have, you know, everyone's talking about how deep this draft class is, and you know, you like to, and I hope that every one of these young kids lives up to all their hype and expectation. You know, I feel weird rooting against teenagers that you don't want to hope that a kid doesn't live up to the hype and expectations they have. I mean, look at, you know, the draft class already from last year. They're all rookies that are already getting just absolutely massacred, you know, as far as, you know, draft bust and things like that, which isn't fair. It totally isn't fair, especially when a lot of these guys have had to develop through had to deal with COVID throughout their development. So that's something you definitely have to take into consideration. But going back to the Ducks, I do think next year is going to be, this offseason, it'll be interesting to see what else Pat Verbeek does, especially given the fact that he's going to have to get Zegras, Drysdale, and Terry re-signed with extensions. That'll hopefully get them to the cap floor. It'll probably maybe, I mean, that's why you give John Klingberg a year, $7 million, and then ship him out. That's why you do it, is to get to the cap floor.
Yeah, now that makes sense.
Exactly. So they won't be fighting. They'll still have some cap space, but it'll be a good season, hopefully, to get more of the young guys up there. And that's kind of what this season was about, was getting Mason McTavish, you know, what was supposed to be Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras more comfortable in their sophomore season. But hopefully, you know, Jamie gets that opportunity next season, fully healthy, fingers crossed. But I think this is really, it won't be a pretty, because rebuilds take time. Rebuilds take, you don't collect a top draft pick and all of a sudden you're fighting for playoff spot. It doesn't work like that, but it's going to take time. And I think this fan base needs to get comfortable, maybe for another season or two, missing the playoffs until, you know, we start to see a little bit more, these young guys starting to really come into their own and figuring out who they are as a top NHL player. But they won't have top draft lottery odds next year. I will say that. I'm pretty comfortable in that statement, but I do think it'll be another season missing the playoffs.
Like bottom 12. You're predicting.
Bottom 12 for sure.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. They won't be fighting for a wild card spot, but they'll be improving. I feel like they'll be kind of where the Detroit Red Wings are right now. Yeah. Kind of just,
I was going to use that as a comparable.
But not on the come up, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Missing a couple pieces, like waiting for these young guys to really, having a farm system that's still very intact and still very deep, but just, you know, like I said, it takes time. And, next year, my assumption is that the goalie tandem will be Gibson and Dostal. Dostal is absolutely NHL ready. We saw that tonight as well, that he's ready. He's ready to have be a part of a goalie tandem in the NHL. And I think with the Ducks, it's really been, you look back to even, maybe 2010. I think that was, no, we'll go 2000. No, 2010 was when Jaguar was traded, but they really had a nice passing of the torch as far as who the goalie in Anaheim is. So you've had Jaguar for the longest time, and then you have Jonas Hiller come up, and Jonas Hiller is it's playing absolutely outstanding. And then they trade Jaguar to Toronto, and they say, hey, it's Hiller's net. And then from Hiller, you start to see guys, Victor Fost comes up, and he really doesn't last that long. But then you have Freddie Anderson come up, and then with Freddie kind of earning the net, and then you have John Gibson coming up. And then from there, solid goalie tandem, obviously won the Jennings trophy, which doesn't really mean much to me, but it has to state that. Then they, trade away Freddie, Gibby's the guy in net. And I think now, which pains me, I'm a John Gibson supporter, believer forever and always, but I think now's the time that we're going to start to see that transition of those Dostal taking over in net. So it'll be a time of transition for sure. But lots to get excited about. There's a lot of young, promising talent coming up in Anaheim. So the future's bright, but got to buckle in and be patient through the process.
Yeah. I could definitely see Anaheim in the playoffs within not next year, but within a 5-year span or so.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wild card in a few years, 100%. I think, you got a lot of young players up and coming. It'll be an exciting time in Southern California.
Yep. I'm so excited for the Kings and the Ducks to both be good again and be competitive. As much as I don't like them, that rivalry is just, I love it. When it's hot, it's hot. I mean, we saw it this year with the John Gibson, Phoenix Copley almost
that
fight.
Was so good.
The fight that almost happened, but didn't. I wish it did. But it's, there was a time where, and this was, the Canucks were a solid team at this time too. It was, you were going in the West Coast and you were lucky to get one win out of playing the Canucks, the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Kings. That was, if you got a win out of those 4 teams during a West Coast road trip, you were smooth sailing. That was a win because the West was just that stacked. And I can't wait for that day to come again. It will, because, it's the ebb and flow. It's the, the changing of the guard in that sense. So I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm ready for my team to be good again.
Yeah. Hockey is more fun when I feel like the West, in my opinion, hockey for the Vancouver Canucks is more fun when the other teams in our conference are also very good that aren't the Alberta teams. Because the Alberta teams, we're sick of them. They're also Canadian teams. We don't want them to succeed because we want to be the Canadian team that, gets the cup first after 30 years this year. Yeah. 1993 was 30 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Math. Yeah. So, but then I remember growing up in the era of we hated the Kings, we hated the Ducks, we hated the Sharks, because we were all good teams. And then now it's kind of just 3 of the 4 are tanking and 1 is somehow in the playoffs. And we don't know how.
It's the circle of life. It's the circle of life.
Circle of life. All right. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Annie.
Of course.
Where can everyone find you?
I love chatting with you. Everyone can find me on social media at Sweet Annie OD. I post pretty much every day on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And that's pretty much where you'll find me. I'll have a podcast coming back sometime during the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is exciting. But as far as before that date gets announced, social media is where I'll be.
Awesome. Definitely check out her TikTok content. It is chef's kiss.
You.
I've been Kaja May with Annie OD. The Vancouver Canucks beat the Anaheim Ducks 3-2 in regulation. That's all for tonight. Stay safe and see you again on Thursday for the last game of the season. Good night, everybody.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.